I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I am really excited about my next guest. Peter and I met through Christopher Knight. We were on a platform that we call Coffee Time with Chris. So I'm really excited to have him here today. We were able to, as fellow entrepreneurs, just talk shop with business, what kind of things we see lining up ahead, in terms of this global pandemic, just our overall outlook about the business and the different industries and how they've been affected. And I'm really excited for him to be here today to kind of give us his perspective. So at this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to him for him to introduce himself to us before we get into the interview.
Uh, Good afternoon, Lachelle. My name is Peter Rondinelli. I'm actually located currently in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I have lived all across the country, as far east as Roanoke, Virginia, and as far west as San Diego, California, and a few places in between. So I've been all the way around. And I am an IT consultant by trade, and the last 5 or 6 years, I've focused heavily on providing marketing and technology solutions for small business clients.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so one thing that I'm obviously not used to introducing myself. So one thing I should mention is I was actually born in Italy. My given
Oh.
name is Gian Piero Rondinelli, but I go by Peter. Just it's easier to write. And I've been in the States since I was 3 years old, and I thank my parents every day that they moved here, especially when I visit my family back in Italy and realize that it's a lot easier to have a business in this country than in that one.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that. But, the scenery and just the
Absolutely, a great
landmarks.
place to visit.
Yeah.
Great place to visit.
I love it. I love how you topped it with that. So we were just talking before we recorded about Hawaii and some of these other places that are nice to visit, but living there can be a totally different scenario. So you're working with IT and different things to kind of support businesses during this time. So what is it that you have noticed just with your industry, with this pandemic, things that we might not be aware of that you feel are important to kind of make note of?
Absolutely. So with my focus on marketing now, what I've really noticed is that a lot of businesses are successfully making the transition
Mhm.
from trying to do business face to face, handshake by handshake, to conducting almost all their business either through video chat, email, text messaging, etc., and just recognizing that that's an effective way to go.
Mhm. Love that. Now, so what tips would you give some of these business owners about creative ways that they could stand out, when it comes to IT or their, web presence or things like that during this time when it seems like everybody is doing the same thing?
Yeah, so the biggest tip that I can give to someone to stand out is, you know, I if you have the comfort level with your personality, just put yourself out there. If you've been very successful face to face in the past,
Mhm.
you're going to be successful face to face via Zoom or other virtual mechanisms because your personality will come across. Don't worry about, the technology side. It's getting easier to use every day. It's getting more compatible with any computers that exist. Even a year ago, Zoom was a little bit difficult for some people to use. And one of the positive sides to something like this lockdown and the pandemic is the fact that Zoom was able to solve their problem solving in a very
We froze there for a minute.
in their platform. Computer gone that way for a lot of different aspects of the industry.
Mhm. Okay. Now, so what kind of tips would you give us in terms of, you know, the way we have our appearance on Zoom? So what are some things maybe that we might be mindful, we might not be aware that we should be thinking about when it comes to our presentations and presence on a digital format?
I guess there's some standard things like be aware that there's a camera on you. So, don't do anything while the camera is turned on that you don't want people to notice. And, some basic things that apply when you're sitting across the table from someone eating, right? So if you're going to snack while on a Zoom call, might be a good time to shut off your video and those type of things. So just be aware. Zoom conversations aren't always interactive one-on-one. So sometimes you have long stretches of time where you are, not engaging, etc. So it's appropriate to keep your video on, but just make sure you're not distracting everyone else if your video is on. So that's really kind of the key. And Zoom, for example, does allow you to have a picture when your video is off. Let's see if I can give you an example.
Oh
No,
yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have it, but you can actually put your picture in the stop part of your video. So when you turn it off, and if you're going to get up from your chair, please turn your video off first. If you have a Zoom box full of 25 people and one of them stands up, the other 24 are looking at that person because it's the eye detects movement, and everyone's going to notice there's abnormal movement in one of those 24 boxes. It's just really that simple.
That's some good tips. So many people, my kids do the online learning. So it's seven of them regularly throughout the day. We have an eighth one who does college courses. And it's just been very popular about how, you have parents in the background. They're not aware that their kids are on camera. So, it's just something you don't think about when it comes to actually people productively having meetings and instruction. We just assume usually this is a one way conversation, watching TV or some kind of entertainment. So those are some good tips, even though a lot of us may be familiar with them, but for many people, it's like a foreign language because they're thinking of a computer monitor like a TV where it's just one sided. So those are good points.
Absolutely. And one of the most common questions I get is about your background and using a green screen
Mhm.
and those type of things. And one of the things I tell people is really the cheapest way for anyone to get a non-distracting background for them is turn your desk around so it's facing outside into the room, and your background becomes whatever wall your chair is up against. So if you're looking for a quick and dirty way just to make it a permanent, non-distractive background, that's what you do. Now, for me, I didn't have that flexibility in my environment, so I do have, in fact, a green screen that looks a little bit like um, what kind of bird am I thinking of? Sorry, a peacock.
Oh,
So if
okay.
that's actually attached to my chair,
Okay.
and um, I occasionally like to do this. Um,
Oh, okay.
so if I turn it off, you'll see there's actually something attached to my chair there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a way to kind of make sure that if there's someone walking in the background, if there's things going on, it prevents that from coming in and out of the background per se. And the one thing that's kind of interesting too is it gives me a bit of privacy. Anyone in the room behind me, they can't see me, so they're not so instinctively interrupting me 15 times during the day.
Oh, that's good. That's
So
good.
so it is kind of interesting to use a little contraption like this.
That's good. Now, I was going to ask one question about when it comes to the virtual backgrounds. Is there some kind of etiquette with that? I mean, do we overdo it? I mean, should we have a regular background, a virtual background? You've got virtual videos now that you could have in your background. So, what is the etiquette with that, or do you think it's personal preference?
It's partly personal preference and partly etiquette. And let me tell you a secret of one of the ladies that I work with does, because she's very conscientious about the cleanliness of her environment, but she loves her living room. She
Hmm.
took a picture of her living room and she uses that picture as her background, so she doesn't have to worry about there being, a basket of clothes on the couch or someone
Right.
walking in or out of the room. So literally, she loves her real background, so she
Mhm.
took a picture and she uses that. Everything else is really kind of up to you. Don't use anything distracting if you're in a professional setting. Don't choose a highlight reel of a sporting event as your background, right? Like, like this video that's in my background here. This is a looping video
Right.
of a beach that actually I got directly through Zoom, and it's nice. It's non-distracting, but the reason I use it is it's generally good for at least 5 minutes of conversation, right?
Right.
So it's almost like an icebreaker. And I have a couple other images that I use, some with my logos. I belong to my local chamber, and when I
Mhm.
attend chamber events, I have their logo on my background image.
Oh,
That says I support my local chamber, and so it's really it can be used the same way that TV personalities and politicians use it, where you can use branding behind yourself,
mm,
or just an alternative to what your real background is.
mhm.
So it's really up to each individual.
I like that. Now, so how do you think people feel about it being a virtual background? Because, some people are like, do you think there's an element of people not really, what's the word? Feeling like they know you? It's kind of
Yeah,
like a little bit of that intimacy is taken away if it's a
yeah.
virtual
So
background.
so in regards to people feeling it's unauthentic,
Mhm.
is what I feel like
Yeah.
you're asking.
Yeah.
I'd say that it really depends on two factors. One, the person's personality and whether or not they just feel it's the equivalent of lying, and there's nothing that you can really do about that.
Mhm.
That person's going to feel that way. And then the other is, the more Zoom meetings that someone's participated with, the less likely they're even going to notice the background, except from a
That's true.
conversational perspective. And people have been using it as a point for conversation. So they literally choose backgrounds specifically to talk about. Uh,
That's
and
true.
and the way professionals do it, you'll see a nice shelf with some books on it and maybe a plaque, and everything was chosen for a reason. So even if you feel like someone's background is authentic, unless it's the first virtual meeting they've ever participated in, chances are there was a lot of thought that went into it.
That's
Right.
good.
So the only real authentic background is spur of the moment. I'm on my cell phone and I couldn't get to where I was trying to get to. So you get what you get. Right.
I
That is really the only authentic background that exists. And
I
everything
agree with that.
else, yeah, even the reference to my colleague that took the picture of her own background so she didn't have to be concerned about the cleanliness.
Right.
It was literally before that she was always cleaning her living room before getting on a Zoom call, and and
Right.
and what what prompted taking the picture was she was about 3 minutes late one time, specifically because she was cleaning, and she felt
Right.
so guilty. She's like, I wish there was a way I could handle this, and that was the solution.
That was good. Because I think this is one of the things that gets to be a hang up for us, because we are concerned about those things. And I mean, it is something to think about. I went to a presentation last week, I believe, and they were just talking about the different etiquette with being on video, and it can be distracting. You may not even remember that there's a basket of laundry, or you've got a ladder or something up against the wall that you just for whatever reason, you might be in the middle of doing a project, a neighbor drops something by or whatever, and you're in your element and you forget, but that's just distracting to the people that are watching you, on
E-
that
e-
call.
Exactly. And if you don't have the capability to control your background, then just get a little bit closer to the screen and that pretty much takes care of it. I mean,
Oh, yeah?
you know what I mean? It's the closer you get. It's really just what's comfortable. And one thing I want to mention real quick, because I didn't think of it till now, is the idea of the audio part. I see a lot of people struggling with the audio part, and using
Oh.
a headset like I have here with a microphone not
Mhm.
only makes it a little easier, but the best part of it is that these are noise reducing as far as the going over the ears, so I'm not distracted by background noise while I'm conducting business. Now occasionally people will tell me my dog's barking or things like that, and then I got to take care of it, but at least it doesn't disrupt the train of thought if it's just normal low volume background noise.
So true. Now that is good, because you can get lost in one. A Zoom meeting can encompass a lot of people. So it's your turn to speak, and then you've got distracted, and you've got a lot of people there waiting to hear what you have to say, or the next person in queue, and who knows when you may be able to make another response. So those are great tips that you've
Absolutely. And I don't know if you just saw me do that, but a gnat just flew by and I went to grab it. And I've been trying to get myself, because it's been around for a couple of days now. I've been trying to get myself not to react to it because I know you can't see it.
right.
But I see it out of the corner of my eye and I instantly swat at it. So so it's probably something I should get better at, because it's probably distracting when suddenly my hand appears on the screen.
No, yeah, nobody knows. But I have that happen to me every once in a while too. And it's like, trying to fan stuff away, or a fly or something. It's like you want to ignore them, you feel like you're on TV, it's like I'm just gonna pretend that this insect is nowhere around, but it's still buzzing and it's a distraction. So I get that.
And absolutely, and of course the option is I can do this and I can pull out this fly swatter and I'm just whipping it around and you have no idea I'm doing it. So that is the other option. And if you're going to blow your nose, if you're going to do something else, if you're going to comb your hair,
Right.
it in the group setting, you always want to turn off your video. When it's one-on-one, it just really depends on the relationship you have with the person that you're talking to,
Right.
and in terms of how important it is to turn off the video. I have one colleague that I meet with her about a half hour every single day,
Hmm.
and both of us, we just get what we get, right?
Hmm.
I think we're on our 35th meeting.
Mm.
The fact that we're getting our business done is more important than what we look like on video,
I love that. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
It's just sometimes it's just that simple. But when you're in a large group, no one wants to be judged, so just turn the video off when there's a possibility of being judged.
Yeah. And, don't forget to mute your microphone, because
Yes,
I've done
that's
that.
it.
It's like I turn my camera off and my kids are doing, I'm like, well, you guys go over there. And then they're like, somebody has their kids in the background.
So, so very
So,
important. If you ever need to temporarily walk away from
mhm.
a Zoom call, no matter what, always mute, always turn off your video, because you don't know if someone's going to stop you and have a conversation with you, even though you just went to grab that cup of water.
Right.
Right. So you never want to have that conversation of, no, I can't. I'm in a meeting. No, I can't answer that right. Right. You just don't want that
Been
to
there,
show
done
up.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
So true. So this is good. Now, what other tips, I guess, would you give people just in terms of things that you've done in order to stay flexible in the current business landscape we have? You
So
know, if yeah, whatever you could give us for that.
absolutely. So one of the areas that people that are making the effective change in their business is readjusting from a perspective of having to do business a certain way to really giving people choices how they want to do business. So let's say you've gotten to the point where you were accustomed doing face to face.
Mhm.
You've now been doing some Zoom, and you want to go back to face, but you're getting a lot of negative feedback as to whether other people are ready. Just simply introduce a choice to the process. So if your process is normally, hey, let's schedule a face-to-face meeting so we can talk about things, just change that to, would you prefer to meet on a virtual call like Zoom, or do you want to meet in person? And by introducing the choice, what happens is your own uh, your own impact of what your preference is will not be received negatively. So very interesting dynamic about people, and this is a little bit from learning about the marketing side of things. Is that if people feel like you're forcing them to an option, such as, oh no, I only meet face to face now because the lockdown's over, to someone that's still worried about their elderly parents or something that they see every weekend or whatever, just by introducing that choice, at least they'll appreciate having the choice. And they might say, you know what? Yeah, we can meet in person for this one. But if you just tell them what the option is, sometimes they'll think, they'll think negatively about that. So introducing choice to everything is not only a good practice in general, but introducing someone to your business and into your sales process, which is what marketing is all about, really, just by providing additional choices, it really is appreciated by everyone involved.
I like that, because I've even done that just with my podcast, give people the option of audio or video because so many people are intimidated to get on a video call for whatever reason. And the more I offer the audio version, only now people are like, well, I'll just go ahead and do video. So it's ended up, but I love the fact of giving people a choice because sometimes we kind of get stuck in our own way. It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for video. But if you give them the option, then they make up their mind and just do it. So I like that element. Um, what other marketing tips would you give people in the industries today?
Absolutely. And just so you know, I don't know if it was me or you, but you froze up for a second, so I missed some of that. But
Okay.
I just want to freeze up. Oh, I do
Yeah,
find
that
that they can repeat anything. Stop doing as I've. If there's anything important you told me, because that's taken badly.
I you
So
gotta love technology. Okay, we did freeze, but we were asking about
absolutely.
marketing tips. So some marketing insight that we could give
Yes.
some of the business owners.
Yeah. Some good marketing tips are, if you currently have a form on your website that is email us or text us or any of those basic traditional things where it's just um, that type of format. Consider adding an option to meet with us virtually, right? Because the technology is so easy to implement now, um, giving that extra option on your website is really kind of showing them that you're a modern business with modern choices, and people that are comfortably using Zoom on a regular basis
Mhm.
are now excited about the idea they don't have to get in their car to go do business with someone if they don't have to, right? I have been working virtually for a number of years, and I used to live in San Diego, and I had a very successful IT consulting business, and I
Mhm.
moved to Las Vegas, more or less because of tax reasons.
Mhm.
It's just so expensive to live in San Diego.
I feel
Uh,
you.
and for some of my clients, I didn't even tell them I relocated. For others, I told them, and they didn't have a problem with it. But for 3 years, I conducted all my IT consulting services, you know, 600 miles away from all of my clients. And ever since I made that transition, uh, it's been primarily virtual that I've conducted all my business. Now, since I've moved to Pittsburgh and I started focusing on marketing, I transitioned back to meeting people in person and doing all that stuff because I was working with the local market here. But
Mhm.
when that transition went back to virtual because of the pandemic, I was pretty excited from the perspective of I'm no longer late because of traffic.
Right.
I don't know what your town is like, but
Hey,
I
I'm
live
in
in
Atlanta area, so you already know it's crazy.
so what's interesting about this town is I live in more or less the suburbs where
Mhm.
the idea of a straight road does not exist,
Right.
and everything is 20 minutes away, even if it's only 3 miles away.
Yeah.
So stop signs and
Right.
everything else. So if there's a little bit of traffic, that turns into 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing how many meetings you can have in one day when they're all back to back to back to back, and you don't have to get up and drive. Or the
So
old
true.
fashioned way, it was 10 minutes when you get in the door of talking hello,
Mhm.
having your meeting, 10 minutes out the door saying goodbye, thank you, what a
Mhm.
nice property you have,
Mhm.
and then the driving time. So
Mhm. Mhm.
and, and I tell you, the interesting thing about this pandemic is the volume of business has exploded for marketing. And people in my industry and people doing what I'm doing have gotten busier than ever,
Mhm.
and so it's really beneficial to be able to have a meeting, get end the meeting and go back to work immediately without those downtimes. Now, the only bad side effect of Zoom meetings is that if you schedule them too close and too often, then you never have time to get your work done. But
Right.
you know, so it's kind of interesting, and going along with some of the tips that you asked me about, giving additional options on your form is really important, and then letting people know what your availability is and how you conduct business is helpful too. So,
Mhm.
so if you're in an industry that is traditionally done in person,
Mhm.
be upfront and direct and tell people how you're doing business now. If a great example of an industry that's having a lot of problems right now is like the massage industry or physical therapy or those type of things, and just basically tell them, look, I have a dedicated environment in my house. You're welcome to attend. I clean all the time. I wear a mask. I wear gloves, whatever you do in that situation, so that people don't have to guess. There,
Right.
there, there is there is a lot of mental anguish caused by this pandemic, and the number one thing that's been the root of all that cause is the unknown, or not being sure, or uncertainty, right?
Mhm.
If you want to conduct business in this environment, try to give people as much information as possible, so it's not another thing that they have to guess what's going to happen,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's accumulative for the everyone's psyche, right? I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I can go to the grocery store. I'm not sure if I can go on vacation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Then they call you to do business, and they're like, "Well, I'm not sure if I have to come over. I'm not sure." Right? You
Right.
continue that cycle, and then
Yeah.
it's just very difficult to make a decision. Whereas if you tell people exactly what to expect, exactly how you're doing things, then at least they have the choice to accept it or not accept it.
I
Or
like that.
yeah, so it's a surprisingly effective way to kind of deal with things. And just a bit of industry thing that was frustrating when this whole pandemic hit was, at one point, Google My Business, so where you get the listings on Google and you get to see the business information,
Mhm.
like they just across the board changed everyone's setting to closed unless they updated it themselves, right? Because they just assumed everyone was out of business.
Wow.
Right. So and what was happening is you would pull up someone's listing and it would say hours may have changed due to COVID-19. And you're like, well, did it change? I don't know. Should I call them? I don't know. Right. And then you call them, it's their main number, so no one's answering it. And so just by putting on your Google My Business, right on your homepage of your website, our new hours, this is how you reach us, just completely transformed certain people's business. On one of my clients' businesses, who's in the health industry, we literally put a giant text at the bottom or at the top of their website that said, "Here are our new hours, and we're doing everything via telemedicine. Just call us, no appointment needed." And her appointments went through the roof.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's some great insight because I think a lot of people, you're right, they are not thinking about that. They're just thinking about getting clients or, keeping their head above water in a lot of these instances that they don't consider that. What are some other things that we probably could do, like on our profiles or different things that people might forget about?
Something that I'm encouraging these days to do is anything that allows you to use video. Record a video of you yourself. Now that everyone's getting comfortable to seeing each other on video,
Hmm.
doing a 30-second video and uploading it to your Google My Business of you saying, "Hi, welcome to my to my business here on Google, and just wanted to let you know that uh, you know um, your health is number one to us," and right, whatever it is that you want to say.
That's
and
good.
and if nothing else, the moment they hear your voice, that relationship begins. People forget that there's a reason that YouTube is the number one website in the world outside of Google, right? It's because people connect with each other in a variety of senses, and the more senses that you're connecting with someone, the stronger of a bond you're going to make. The fact that we can't use the touch right now, the visual makes up for it compared to um the phone. Like, if we were all conducting business by phone right now, there would be so many more failing businesses,
Right.
right? Because people would not be building the relationships that they're building. I mean, I'm building relationships with people in completely different states where it feels like I know these people very well. Christopher Knight is a great example of it.
That's true.
And
This
and,
is true.
and here's the thing: I met Christopher last summer, probably early summer,
Oh, okay.
and I literally think he is one of the most important people in my life, in my life for my professional business, and I've never met him. Right?
Yeah.
It's just that simple. But I have been on a Zoom chat of one kind or another with him probably over 30, 40, maybe 60 times.
Yeah.
And it's not quite the same as meeting someone in person, but sometimes has more meaning because it's a non-distracting conversation,
Right.
right?
I get that.
If you meet with a potential client in a restaurant that's busy at lunchtime,
Mhm.
there's a lot of distraction plus the food you're eating.
Mhm.
But if you have a one-on-one Zoom call with a potential client,
Mhm.
with the exception of phone calls and interruptions, etc., it's an undistracted situation.
So true.
And there's definitely a lot less distraction than meeting people at a restaurant.
Right. And I think, like you said, you're more intentional with that meeting.
Exactly.
Even if you're, having meetings back to back, it's that element of looking that person in the eye, getting right to the point. I mean, yeah, we sometimes have, a few moments of, talking about the weather or something, some general topic, but for the most part, it's business as usual. It's like, hey, we're getting to the point or whatever it is. And I even like the element of people blocking off 15 or 30 minutes, so it really helps people say, okay, this is a connection call, and they already have an agenda set on what it is they're going to talk about, and anything that they send to people ahead of time is even good.
Absolutely, and there's one idea that I just thought of that might apply to some people that are watching this recording right now,
Hmm.
and that is if you have the type of business where you have a lot of people that are constantly looking for almost like immediate feedback, but generally small. So, for example, if you have like a support scenario where people just have quick questions that they're like, "Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that?" One of the things I've seen or that I've experimented with a little bit that's actually worked very nice is I've had almost the equivalent of what I call office hours with my Zoom link, where I basically tell people, hey, I'm going to be available between 4 and 6 p.m. In my Zoom channel. If you have any questions about what we're doing or what you're working on, just drop in and I'll give some quick notes or quick advice for a screen share if we need to, etc.
That's good.
And and then that way you don't have to schedule so many things
Hmm.
and people can plan accordingly, right? So they can say, oh, you know what, I've got some questions, I'm going to go ahead and wait until his office hours instead of trying to book something with him now.
So
uh,
true.
so that's something that I experimented with a couple months ago and it worked really well. The problem became that my schedule was too unpredictable. I couldn't actually have hold my office hours anymore, but it
Right.
was working out pretty well when I was doing it. And it's well, the interesting thing was my mom popped in once.
Oh, okay.
She was like, it's so hard to get a hold of you. So,
That's good. Hey, I do the same thing, but mine are like 6 a.m. I have them
Mhm.
one day a week. So my philosophy is if you're really serious, you're going to get up and you're going to come to office hours. Otherwise, you could have it those times and people are like, oh, let me just see what they're doing. And so, it just depends on the personality of the people, if they're serious about business or not. So for me, I'm like, hey, I'm on a mission. I got to make the most out of these early mornings. So, yeah, but I think that is a very good idea. And then it also just kind of helps you organize your day because you might have somebody who just has a quick question and you're going back and forth on Messenger or something else, and it's like we can just knock this out one time for everybody during these hours. So I get that. That's a really good idea.
Absolutely, and the fact that you mentioned the communication on Messenger and that type of thing is, if there's any platform that you don't customarily use that you see other people using that you're communicating with, tell them that you don't check it very often, and tell them what your preference is. So
That's
if
good.
you're not on Facebook every day, and you join a Facebook group and someone wants to reach out, let them know, look, I don't check my Facebook Messenger very often. So if you want to reach me, send me an email or send me a text message, because I may not notice it for days. This goes back to the idea of just, to give people as much information as possible, so that they can make adjustments if warranted. And at the same time, if you have 10 or 15 people in your circle that they all want to communicate via Facebook Messenger, it's time to start logging into Facebook Messenger 5 or 10
Right.
times a day, right? So so
Right.
not only do you want to be upfront and tell people what your preference is, at some point you may have to make adjustments
Mhm.
to be, part of what everyone else is doing as well. So don't be afraid to make those changes and let people know, hey, I'm on Messenger full time now. I love real life examples
Real
of what
life.
can happen.
Okay, I'm
And,
telling you. I'm
and
like, hey, it doesn't bother me one bit. It's so funny. I have certain people I do interviews with, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like there's a horn outside or something. I'm like, look, I have 10 kids in my house, and they could do whatever in the background, and I can tune them out.
uh,
So sometimes they'll say something, and people are like, is it okay? And I'm like, fine. Nobody is hurt or anything. I can just go right through. So yeah, the dog situation didn't bother me at all.
Absolutely. Now, since the dog made a bunch of noise, I'm gonna have to bring her in, because she
Oh,
is
okay.
she is she is my version of my family, right? So so
Oh,
so I don't know if she sounded this small, but
yeah, not at
she is
all.
she is under 6 pounds. She's a
Oh,
Chihuahua, for anyone that hasn't seen a Chihuahua in real life.
oh. She looks like she's pretty comfortable with the Zoom. So hey, I'm taking it. She's used to that.
Uh, a little bit, and
And dressed for success with her outfit on, right?
well, it's cold up here in the north.
Oh, okay.
you
Well,
know, so
this has been so much fun, Peter. So I appreciate all your insights. I could go for hours, okay? Because marketing is something that, we never can get enough of that. That's for sure. So what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
the best way is through my email, peter at digixlocal.com. That's digix local. And yeah, that's probably the best way. Or on my website, which of course has got everything there.
Okay.
But yeah, and one final recommendation that I have with people for everything that they're doing online. If you haven't changed anything you're doing online in the last 7 months, go change it, because the world is a little bit different, and whatever you were doing before needs to be updated to the way everything works now. um, so just that simple. And you may make sure everything is updated. Make sure, if you're using your cell phone now, instead of your main business line, change it on your website, on your listings, etc. Just make sure the information is a little bit updated compared to before.
I love that. That's great words. Okay. Because everybody, like I said, they get up, they think that, hey, let's just keep it moving and forget about some of those basic things. So that's some great advice. Well, we just want to thank you guys for tuning in with us today. This has been quite a treat. We've seen frozen Zoom, we've had dog barking and all kinds of stuff. So It's been fun. So I want to thank you guys for joining us and reach out to Peter. If you have any of these issues with marketing, I mean, the things that he has told us are very practical, easy to implement. And that's what we need during this time. We need to have things that are small baby steps that are moving us forward. And I encourage you to reach out to him because he definitely can help you. So, we will see you guys the next time. And thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Right.